What does it say? Yo.
Thank you for those who've joined already. Let's give it a minute or so just to get the majority of you back, Natalie and Steph as well. Any questions at this stage? Some of you are still unmuted, and therefore we can listen to all your private conversations. I don't want to know what you are doing, so just keep it to yourself, please. You do know that through cameras I can actually see what you're doing and what you're not doing. Who's making a cup of tea for themselves? Jessica's joining us. Let's get back to where we left off with chapter 4.
Okay, thanks.
Larissa's joining us. Is there any questions that any of you might have at this stage? Right, I know some of you have questions, but you'd much rather ask me that in privacy through an email or another platform. Right. The rest of chapter 4 is not when it comes when you prepare for your tests and exams, these are not specifically a section or a part of this particular chapter that you will necessarily find in every exam paper. Not that this particular section of chapter 4 is less important, but I know that some of you have research as one of your topics in either of one first, second, or third year of your courses. But how values are measured and the different forms of methods of measuring these values is pretty much what the rest of this chapter is about. I believe that research methodology is extremely important in general walk of life and not specifically just subject related. But I can pretty much summarize it and say that the remainder of this chapter is very much reading. Not additional reading as part of your module work that needs to be covered. But it, my apology. If you read through this particular part of chapter 4 and get a good overview, you'll be well off. As I said, I'm not going to, in great detail, for instance, require you to differentiate between instrumental advertising and terminal advertisements. That's not the essence of this particular chapter. Importantly for us, however, is that we do know, or that we do have to know, that there are basically, for the application of our values, and from a marketing point of view of the different products and services that companies have out in the market, that there are basically two theoretical grounds for these perspectives. The sociological macro perspective and the psychological micro perspective, where your sociological macro perspective specifically refers to research that's done through surveys. You complete the survey, and that information basically is then combined to classify different or to basically categorize the respondents to this particular survey in clusters, which basically says these are in favor and these are against. So it doesn't provide you, it provides you a means of obtaining people's opinions about the particular value, but it's not it's not a it's not a method that provides you with sufficient information to, from a marketer's point of view, to determine how those individuals would necessarily behave. Your psychological micro perspective is based on three components that is interlinked. It's based on the means to an end kind of theory, where the attributes of the product is the means, the consequences, how you experience that particular attributes of a product, and your own personal values, that being the end, all combined together to determine what your how your behavior would be. Obviously, representing a particular value, because your own personal values is the means to an end, or is the end in that particular theory. Right. Um, the different concepts that's used, like your HVM, hierarchical value map, and your VSM, your value structured map. Read through it. I also say read through it and forget it, because it's not of great importance for us. More importantly for me is, that particular example I'm referring to there is again, just to determine your values, how important certain values, the importance of certain values, is affected when you are confronted with a situation like, for instance, you were on your way to actually attend this morning session, and then some of your friends called you and said, listen, hey, there's a great special on today at Panarottis or at Romans or wherever. Let's quickly go for a pizza. Let's make it an early lunch, or brunch or whatever. And your values, you quite you quite have quite strong values, and that is that obviously you've signed up for a particular course, you want to attend, you have to attend these sessions, and you also know what the consequences are if you don't. Maybe you'll have to then repeat work, maybe you miss work that later on affects the submission of an assignment or not, because now you've missed the information, because you decided that instead of following your beliefs and values um, of work first and then play later, you actually suffer the negative consequences of your decision. So that's just an example, to put everything into perspective. But importantly for me, in the remainder section after this particular chapter, is to say that part of the values, and if we bring it to, in context to the South African core values, we see that, and I actually had a discussion on this subject with my son in grade 11, who's preparing to do a history assignment. And we spoke about the importance of history. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those subjects at school that some people take because it's easy marks, and other people don't enroll for because it's boring. It's just what happened in the past. I believe it's very important that we do know how we all got together on this day, the 11th of March, 2021, not just in South Africa, but globally, because we are not isolated just to the southern tip of Africa. And sometimes, yeah, we get so caught up in our own individual issues and problems that we forget that we actually just a very small particle of a much bigger world and universe, for that matter. But for me, importantly, to assist with understanding where we are and where we go and what our potential is, if we learn from our different cultures and then combine those lessons that we've learned, is that we have to realize that in South Africa, um, we have no, or very little, um, or we do know very little of the history of the the geographical area that is now called South Africa, prior to 1652 when Jan van Riebeeck arrived here. And then since then, him being from Holland, um, and then later on when the British settlers arrived in 1820, and then obviously when England in just after that started to target Africa specifically to find new colonies for them and grow their global footprint. It has left a specific um, it has left some symbols like buildings and statues and certain architectural styles, which is a combination of all those ancestral African, Asian, and European values that they represent. And we can't deny that that it happened, or that, and we still find nowadays in some areas it's got a Victorian architectural style because that particular area um, represents a specific phase in our history and a specific cultures that played a very important part in our history. Remember, South Africa was still under British rule until 1961. We only got our independence in 1961. So there is a history. We cannot deny the history. We don't have to be caught up in the history. Please, thankfully, hope that's not the case. But we have to learn from our history because it adds value to understanding the cultures that we currently experience, and to a certain extent also what they represent and where they originate from. Because, as I said, we are definitely not isolated here on the tip of Africa. There has been, from a marketing point of view, I'm not going to go into that. That's one of the three ways that that was used, or theories that was used to try and measure our values. It's of greater importance to me in sort of conclusion of this particular chapter um, that we focus on very important aspects in our and tools that has been used for a number of years now. Um, it was developed by the South African Advertising Research Foundation, and I specifically refer to the LSM Living Standards Measure, which is basically a tool that was used, um, uh, or a wealth measure based tool that was used to identify the standards of living of the larger population of South Africa. And there are 10 different LSM levels. You don't have to know anything about it. You need to know there is something like the living standards measure, and that it is not necessarily gender-based or racist-based. It's pretty much um, it pretty much uses criteria like wealth and accessibility to certain resources and certain amenities like running water and electricity as criteria to determine um, um, the lifestyle of certain communities and in general the population of the country. It is of great importance from a marketing point of view that you understand that there are levels like this, and more specifically to help you to communicate effectively with the different levels. Because, for instance, and I'm just going to compare two levels, the lowest one, level 1, and the highest one, level 10, where your lowest one, level 1, or LSM level 1, it basically consists of um, people who are from rural areas, who are mainly female, who are over the age of 50, who don't have access to electricity and often not to running water. So from a marketer's point of view, and basically who either have a nomadic lifestyle or the household income is roughly about 1,500 to 1,700 rand a month. Now, if you want to communicate with those potential consumers that you have a new product or a new service that you offer, what mediums would you be using? Because those people are definitely not going to have DSTV premiership, premium membership, and they probably won't even have, because they don't have access to electricity. They won't have any of those amenities. Um, Quite interesting enough about the LSM1 group is that more than 65% of them actually have access to radio, obviously through the battery operated mode. So therefore, yes, if you want to reach those, you are definitely not going to put posters up against a lamppost and send them emails or run commercials on television. You will definitely ensure that the medium to communicate with them is via radio. Where in the other end, LSM10 group, the highest group, where the average monthly income is between 35 and 45,000 South African rand, where the individuals are usually multi-qualified, so they finish school and at least have one diploma, certificate, or degree. They're fairly independent. They either own property or they are renting property. They are employed. Um, they mostly have their own transport. They own a vehicle. They definitely own at least one television. They have access to the internet, and they're active on social media platforms. So again, comparing that to level one, a complete different consumer or approach, strategy of communicating that you need to use to reach those particular individuals and bring as a marketer your message about your products and services across to them. That's mainly, to me, the most important um, aspects that you need to know about the LSM group, or the Living Standards Measure um, tool that is used to categorize consumers. Any questions by anybody at this stage? The last number of slides is about measuring the cultures, and there are three different, or mainly three methods that is predominantly used. I'm not going to go into detail about any of these. It's not to me of significant importance in this particular chapter. I think again it's a read-through section where you should just know that there are different methods, and just be just be aware of the fact that there are different methods that is used, and some more commonly than others, and for different reasons. One is more effective than the other, but they also are various. They also vary in efficiency based on the particular outcome that you want to achieve. So, at this stage, I think we can clearly say that we have successfully negotiated another chapter, chapter 4. If you have any questions about chapter 4, you are more than welcome to ask me now. Um, I have taken attendance, so those who want to leave the session, you are welcome to do so. This is officially the end of the session. Unless there's anybody who wants to ask me a particular question, if you want to stay on for another minute or so, just to ensure that you, or if you'd rather uh, want to individually ask me a question, or do it in privacy, you're more than welcome to. Any questions from anybody? Ashley, Franco, Jessica, Kaylee? I know you joined a bit late. You did not miss the attendance. I saw that you attempted to join the Zoom session at 9:13 this morning already, Jessica. So I'm aware of you, and I know that you have joined. So I've made a note of that. Don't worry about that. Thanks, Jessica. You're not absent. I know that you're here. Thanks, everybody. It's Thursday, whatever that means. To me, it means it's one day closer to Friday, which is usually our training day. But thankfully, there's a weekend that will interrupt this week to next week. So enjoy the weekend, whatever you're going to do. It looks as if for once the sun is back in Cape Town. Um, And we are going to have a pleasant weekend. Wherever you are, enjoy your weekend. Stay safe, make good decisions. Um, yeah, and try and make friends with new people from different cultures. We'll chat about, we continue our chat next week. We'll be doing different reference groups that the majority of you, I think, play a very important part in your lives and making your decisions. So we'll be looking at reference groups next week in chapter 5. If nobody have any questions, those who are still with me, Sonel, Marco, Franco, and Ruan, Kaylee, keep well. I'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.